Good morning. I am CWO Mike Lutz, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies for today's retirement. Welcome to Palos Verdes, California, and Point Vicente Lighthouse. The transfer of a member to the retirement roster is the ultimate goal of each person who decides to make the Coast Guard a career. It is only fitting that such an event be preceded by a ceremony designed to express the appreciation of the Coast Guard for the members' many years of faithful and honorable service. Today we are gathered to honor Captain John W. Pruitt III, who will retire from the Coast Guard after over 23 years of active duty service, plus 4 years at the Coast Guard Academy, for a total of 27 years of service to the people of our country. It is requested that uniformed members remain covered and follow my lead for salutes throughout the ceremony. Will the guests please rise for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the playing of our national anthem and the invocation. Now, Chaplain Darrell Wesley, United States Navy, arriving. Now, Captain John W. Pruitt III, United States Coast Guard, arriving. Now, Captain Howard Wright, United States Coast Guard, arriving. And salute. Ready to. Captain Darrell Wesley, U.S. Navy Chaplain Corps, will now offer the invocation.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you today for the coolness of this moment that reminds us of your gratefulness and gentleness and grace and mercy towards us. On this occasion, we are mindful of your steadfast love and how you keep us and how you stand the eternal watch, that you never sleep nor slumber. On this day, we are mindful that you have called us to service. And this occasion is fitting to lift up to you your servant, Captain John Pruitt III, a man of valor and virtue, one who has stood the watch for 27 years, beginning at the Coast Guard Academy to his first duty station and assignment as deck watch officer on board Coast Guard cutter Monroe, to his distinguished job now as motion picture and television liaison officer. We congratulate his leadership and commemorate his loyalty. On this day, we are mindful that you will be with him and remain his constant guide in the days ahead. So, Lord, before we move on with the pomp and circumstances, that is deserving of Captain Pruitt, we're mindful that we should ask you to come into our company and grant us with your presence. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. On behalf of Captain Pruitt, I would like to take this opportunity to recognize some special guests in attendance this morning. His mother, Constance Pruitt, and girlfriend, Irina Seiko. Also in attendance are a host of family, friends, and shipmates from far and wide. We are also honored to recognize our veterans in attendance today. Thank you all for joining us to celebrate this momentous occasion. Welcome, everyone. Retirement ceremonies are a time-honored tradition that formally recognize the completion of service for military personnel. The United States Coast Guard originally set sail with the ideals and goals that would make us the best, allowing us to build traditions that would stand the test of time. Now, in a more modern, fast-paced, and technically advanced world, it would be easy to give up most of the pomp and circumstance, the honors, traditions, and ceremonies. Those things from the past that said to the world, we are the United States Coast Guard. But still today, we heave to, stop all engines, and drop the anchor. Stand by to pay tribute to one of our shipmates, a shipmate going home, to honor those years served, the guidance, the leadership, the experience, and above all, the friendship that this shipmate has given over the years. We assemble here today to pay tribute to Captain John W. Pruitt III, who is retiring after 27 years of faithful and honorable service to this country. Additionally, we dedicate this ceremony to his family for the sacrifices they made in support of his military service. Today not only marks the completion of his military career, but also the beginning of new endeavors for him and his family. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce Captain Howard Wright, Chief of Coast Guard Public Affairs. Please welcome Captain Howard Wright.
Thanks, Mike. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today to pay tribute to my friend, classmate, and colleague, John Pruitt. I'd like to extend a special welcome to John's family, his mother, Constance, her childhood friend, Virginia, who flew in from Kansas City to be here, girlfriend, Irina. I'd also like to extend a special welcome to Rear Admiral Tim Sullivan, U.S. Coast Guard retired. Welcome, sir. And to all of John's other friends, family, colleagues, members of the great class of 94, welcome. There you go. I especially want to thank John's mother for the time she spent with me on the phone. I asked her how she felt about John's career and retirement today, and we spoke for almost an hour. Her pride was evident in every story she told me about John's childhood. I think she has good reason to be proud. John has built a reputation in the Coast Guard based on the very traits his parents hoped to instill in him as a child. I learned that John and I have something in common. Both of our fathers were the one who recommended that we attend the Coast Guard Academy. John had been interested in the Air Force Academy, which his father thought was okay as well. As far as West Point went, John's father told him, you know, after 21 years, anything you want to know about the Army, you can ask me. His parents had taken John to the Air Force Academy, but it felt too big and too impersonal. So when his dad recommended the Coast Guard Academy, John wrote and asked to visit. As soon as they got to the academy, they were struck by the feeling of camaraderie and warmth. John and his parents both liked how the smaller size of the academy gave it a feeling of community. After his weekend visit, they had a discussion about the $1,500 deposit at the time. And his mother remembered John saying, "This is where we want to go, just go ahead and pay it." This sense of community and family is a special thing in the Coast Guard and part of the reason why I'm so honored to be speaking here at his retirement today. I met John 27 years ago when we reported the academy. He was roommates with my best friend, so I was in his room probably more than he would have liked. I still remember the chocolate cake that his mothers used to send to him. I think I showed up a little more frequently when I heard that John had a care package. I hope I'm not telling tales out of school here. I always thought that cake was a secret Pruitt family recipe, but his mother just told me that it came out of the Coast Guard Academy Parent Association cookbooks. This is a rare thing in life, to make friends in such an intense experience like the academy, and then to go on and work with those people for the rest of your career. So to be there at the beginning of such a distinguished career and to be here speaking at the end of it is very special to me, and I'm deeply moved by it. A sense of community is what first drew John to the academy, and fostering community within the Coast Guard is what he spent his career doing. John was in the Genesis Club at the academy, a group that provided camaraderie and support to minority cadets. And his experience there instilled in him a sense of obligation to that organization to, as John put it, give back to people and make sure the cadets get the truth about the life they're going to have in the Coast Guard. So while many of us left the academy and didn't go back for years, John has been back 2 or 3 times a year ever since to provide that truth to the cadets. In the fleet, John has joined organizations that built community, and where they did not exist, he created them. At San Diego, as a lieutenant, he served as the president of the local chapter of the National Naval Officers Association, a group for sea service minority officers. When the Navy didn't provide a space for the group to meet, John invited them to the wardroom at the Coast Guard base. When his CO displayed some skepticism about the arrangement, John co-opted him by inviting him to be their first guest speaker. At headquarters, he created a monthly dinner mentoring group for African American junior officers that provided leadership and community in a place that can be pretty lacking in both. And lastly, John shoulders the thankless task of assembling our class notes for the alumni bulletin, sending us a monthly reminder that after all these many years, we are still bound by that experience. While these are some of the more organized efforts, everyone I spoke with talked about John's constant drive to create a sense of belonging for those he served with, those he led, and everyone he came in contact with. Another insight that John's mother gave me about his childhood was her and John's father's drive to instill in John a sense that it was always the right time to do the right thing. I would say that's a lesson that stuck because it's a trait that is carried out throughout John's career. Now, I always like an opportunity to quote Abraham Lincoln in public, so I appreciate that, John. And there's a particular quote I think that's appropriate in this instance. Nearly all man can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. The Coast Guard has given John power and responsibility over the lives of Coast Guard servicemen and women in life and death situations and in dangerous environments. He commanded 3 Coast Guard vessels. He led boarding teams during the Iraq War. He served in positions of influence and held the lives and careers of countless people in his hands. And how did power affect John? What character did it reveal? When the Coast Guard gave John power, he responded with wisdom and compassion. Grounded in a sense of community and family he spent his career cultivating, he based his decisions in fairness, equality, and justice. He respected his crews and they him. He listened to them and placed his trust in them. He protected them, defended them, coached them, and mentored them, and held them to high standards that he helped them to achieve. When John was given power, he responded with selflessness. Out of John's distinguished career, I think one of those assignments stands out as a perfect statement of his time in the Coast Guard. While assigned here at MOPIC, John was asked to temporarily take command of the Steadfast, whose CO had been relieved due to a loss of confidence. A unit where the CO has been relieved suffers from all the things you'd expect from a lack of leadership. A toxic environment, a loss of trust among the crew, injustice, unfairness, a loss of community and cohesion. It takes a unique kind of leader to be able to step into that environment, and the leadership at PAC area knew exactly the person to call on. John's mother said she was always amazed by how John knew where he wanted to go and, more importantly, how to get there. When JP stepped aboard the ship, he saw plainly the problems that the command environment had created, and he knew exactly how to fix them. He led the way he had his whole career. He restored a sense of community. He led fairly, compassionately, and selflessly. So here, we honor John for his years of dedicated service to the nation, and there are so many accomplishments that I've failed to mention. But in speaking with classmates and shipmates and family, these two things stood out. He spent his career building community and leading selflessly in the service that he loved. I think that's a career well spent. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Captain Wright. Captain Pruitt, would you please join us for recognition of your faithful service? Please join Captain Wright at the front of the stage. Attention to award. On behalf of the Commandant, I will now read the citation to accompany the award of the Meritorious Service Medal. To Captain John W. Pruitt III, United States Coast Guard. Captain Pruitt is cited for meritorious service in the performance of duty while serving as Director of the Motion Picture and Television Office, Los Angeles, California, from July 2013 to June 2017. Through exceptional managerial and technical expertise, he oversaw over 300 projects across every major television network and movie studio. During each project, he aggressively ensured the Coast Guard's positive portrayal and highlighted each of the Coast Guard's 11 statutory missions, generating unprecedented, extensive worldwide coverage for the service. His efforts significantly raised the Coast Guard's visibility and the public understanding of the service both internationally and domestically, with the top 5 projects earning more than $1 billion, an amount that greatly eclipses the capabilities of the Coast Guard's entire advertising budget. As a culmination to his high standards and attention to detail, 3 projects received Academy Awards, and 6 projects were awarded Emmys. His superb planning and leadership skills were highlighted as he volunteered for a 90-day deployment as the commanding officer of the Coast Guard cutter Steadfast, executing AMIO patrols in offshore smuggling routes that supported the Commandant's Western Hemisphere and Southern border strategies, all while ensuring MOPIC continued to function at incredible efficiency. Captain Pruitt's dedication and devotion to duty are most heartily commended and are in keeping with the highest standards of the United States Coast Guard. On behalf of the President of the United States, I will now read a certificate of appreciation for faithful service to our nation in the armed forces of the United States. I extend to you my personal thanks and the sincere appreciation of a grateful nation for your contribution of honorable service to our country. You have helped maintain the security of the nation during a critical time in its history with a devotion to duty and a spirit of sacrifice in keeping with the proud traditions of military service. Your commitment and dedication have been as inspiration for those who will follow in your footsteps and for all Americans who join me today in saluting you for a job extremely well done. My best wishes to you for happiness and success in the future, the President of the United States.
All right, here's the big one.
We're going to skip this one.
It's your last chance.
Captain Pruitt, we will now present to you the Certificate of Retirement. From the Armed Forces of the United States of America, to all who shall see these presents, greetings. This is to certify that Captain John W. Pruitt III, having been retired after honorable service in the United States Coast Guard, is awarded this testimonial as an acknowledgement of duty faithfully performed during a period of over 23 years done at Washington, D.C. this first day of October in the year of our Lord 2017. Signed, Admiral P. Zumkoft, Commandant, U.S. Coast Guard. Thank you. You all can be seated now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome guest speaker, Commander Tony Hayes, C4IT Department Head.
Good morning. Captain Wright, family, friends, honored guests. Good morning. I'm Commander Anthony Hawes, and I've come out here from Base Portsmouth, Virginia, to talk about my friend John. I met Captain John Pruitt, or John, or JP as he's known, about 11 years ago, shortly after I arrived at my first tour at Coast Guard headquarters in Washington, D.C. I finally made it to the Puzzle Palace and was getting used to how things were working. I was in a big building that housed a few thousand people with the corridors painted gray, the type of gray that messes up your depth perception if you stare at it too long. One day I was transiting the corridor, finding an office. No, actually, I was probably lost. And I ran into John, who introduced himself and welcomed me to the building. I felt like a VIP. He showed me where things were, how to get around. Something about him stood out. This guy seemed really enthusiastic about his job, which had something to do with strategy. He lacked the 1,000-yard stare that affected so many others in the cubicle farm there. In short, he seemed knowledgeable, plugged into something important, and truly happy. So I thought, hey, this guy's going places. Maybe he's someone to get to know. We quickly found out we had much in common. We're both from large cities. He's from Atlanta, I'm from Chicago. Both attended the Coast Guard Academy. Both majored in electrical engineering. We're both bikers. He's a road biker. I'm a mountain biker. We're both tech enthusiasts. And at the time, we're both single guys in the DC area. And as far as adventure, had the same philosophy. Not afraid of it, but nothing too crazy, right? Nothing too crazy. So who is John Pruitt? He's adventurous, fun-loving, honest, focused, always looking to the future and what's next. He never gives up. A realist who sees things as they are, not how he wants them to be, which makes him a great fixer, which Captain Wright alluded to, and a great mentor also. A really great mentor. He maintains a positive outlook on life, lives in the moment, truly enjoys whatever he does. He never complains and just doesn't give up. He's a frequent traveler, whether it's to the Winter Olympics in Vancouver or Paris with his mom, to Japan with his girlfriend Irina. Someone who lives life to the fullest. So he doesn't give up easily and inspires others to do the same, so I'm going to share a story with you about a time I almost gave up. No, it's not that serious, but you decide. I met this really attractive woman in DC on the metro. I'd used my best skills, best tactics to get her number, and I was feeling pretty good about myself. I had the number. I told him the story. He said, hey, great, man. I called her back, and this, mind you, was before the days of the iPhone. So I called her back and left a message on an answering machine. Nothing. 1 week passed. I said, okay, I'll give it another try. Called her again. Nothing. Another week passed. So I relayed the story to John, and I said, I think I struck out. I'm pretty sure. He said, nah, dude, you should call her one more time. I said, really? Make the case for that. So he did. And I called that girl one more time. Turns out John's theory was right. She was on travel because she was actually a very busy woman. And I guess it worked out because after that, her and I got married, and she's sitting in the audience today. So John doesn't give up, and he made sure I didn't give up either. John's also the kind of man that makes you feel welcomed wherever you are, truly welcomed. He welcomed me. He was the person who welcomed me to Coast Guard headquarters. And I found out where he got that from. My wife and I, a few years later, visited Atlanta, Georgia, and we met his mom. And she welcomed us into her house in the same manner John had. And I see where he got that character from. So I'd like to say thank you, Mrs. Pruitt, to raising such a smart, gregarious, and truly friendly man. Thank you. Also, John has a penchant for the finer things in life. High-end electronics, BMWs. He's what I would call a technology enthusiast, clearly an early adopter. Of course, there's the normal things, smartphones, computers, things like that. But truly, he's the only person I know with a retractable, motorized microwave in his home kitchen. And let me tell you, it's pretty neat. You have to see it. John is knowledgeable about many things, from foreign military policy, joint service operations, but maybe the most useful skill he has in all that knowledge is he always knows the best restaurants to eat at in every city he's been in America. And I see some people nodding their heads. You know it's true. Actually, truth be told, the first 6 months I dated my wife, those places we went, sweetie, they were based on JP's recommendations. They really were. Weren't my ideas at all. So when John told me he was retiring, I was surprised because I knew he loved his job and he loves the United States Coast Guard. How much? I mean, do a Google search. John Pruitt Coast Guard, John W. Pruitt III Coast Guard. And you will see results of him, pictures, video, promoting the Coast Guard on social media, YouTube. He will talk to anyone who will listen about the U.S. Coast Guard. He's a true coastie at heart. He's truly enjoyed all the jobs he's had in our service. And more importantly, enthusiastically shares that experience with others. It's actually quite fitting that JP's last tour is as the liaison to the motion picture industry, because through his work with the people that make the media that we all watch and is seen around the world, his last tour is as the ultimate Coast Guard ambassador. So, even though this marks the end of John's active duty in the United States Coast Guard, we have not lost an ambassador, and I know that this is truly not the end of JP's journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commander. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest speaker, Charles Fritz Keebler, Commander, Coast Guard Retired.
Good morning. Almost afternoon. What a beautiful day. I cannot think of a more appropriate place, certainly no other location that is able to beat these views. Give a little bit of context. As Mike just stated, I retired about a month ago. I did it on the flight deck of the Coast Guard cutter Dauntless in Galveston, Texas. While my own ceremony was certainly special for a lot of reasons, I have to admit a little bit of envy as I take all this in. Coast Guard properties and venues across this country sometimes are simply breathtaking, and this is definitely one of those places. Distinguished colleagues, guests, welcome. Mrs. Pruitt, especially. Welcome to you, and congratulations. I have no doubt that you're overwhelmed with pride today, and as you well should be, not only for John's contributions to this Coast Guard nation, but also for your accomplishments. An eternal supporter, John. It's a blessing to see you again. Please join me in a round of applause for Mrs. Pruitt. Likewise, anybody who knows John knows the impact that his father had upon him and his own life. So I'm also confident that John W. Pruitt II is also looking down on this very special moment today, overwhelmed with joy, pride, and admiration for all of his son's remarkable accomplishments and for the completion of his storied career. So back to Mrs. Pruitt. If you'll bear with me for one moment, I'm going to tell a quick sea story about the first time I met Mrs. Pruitt. It was when I first arrived as XO on the Coast Guard cutter Dauntless, a 210-foot medium endurance cutter based in Galveston, Texas. I decided I should have a little event at my house. It was a weekend barbecue with the officers from the wardroom there. Being fairly new and a leader of the wardroom, I was a little nervous, and I wanted everything to be done correctly. And it would be the first time my new shipmates met my family. Mrs. Pruitt happened to be in town, and of course she attended the event with John. And as always, she looked absolutely stunning and lovely, and she was dressed in her Sunday finest. And she had this awesome hat, and she was rocking it the only way a Southern woman can. It was spectacular. So one of the first things to understand about this story is the layout of my house at this time. And it's the same layout as every house in suburbia Texas. You walk in, and there's an open floor plan on the first floor. Above this first floor, there's a catwalk. It usually connects the upstairs bedrooms to what we call the game room. And that catwalk overlooks the living area. So there I was, standing outside on my patio, cooking some hamburgers or something, and something caught my eye. And that something was Mrs. Pruitt's hat. It kind of dodged right, and dodged left again. And what's going on in there? And I look up, and there's my then 2.5-year-old son who had an obsession with Hot Wheels, and he's chucking them down, and Mrs. Pruitt's dodging, missing the Hot Wheels. I said, man, what a first impression. But anyways, of course, she and John both handled that with the calm, cool, and collected stride they always do. It was as if nothing happened. There were just Hot Wheels at her feet. So, anyways, moving on. Thank you, John, for asking me to speak during your retirement ceremony. What a distinct honor and pleasure that is to be able to be here today and share my thoughts, admiration, and appreciation for one of the most compassionate and purest servant leaders I've ever known. As I said, I was privileged to serve with John under his leadership as his executive officer on the Coast Guard cutter Dauntless for what ended up being 2 of the most formative years of my own Coast Guard career. To set the stage a little bit, Meredith, my wife, and I, we had a discussion at our house the night before the detailer, who's the assignment officer, called to tell me that I was going to go to the Dauntless. And it went something like this. You know, Meredith, the only place they're not going to send me is Galveston, Texas, and the Dauntless. And my wife said, as always, much smarter than I am, yeah, sure, sailor. We'll see about that one. And it wasn't because Dauntless was at the bottom of my list. In fact, it was probably just above the halfway mark. It was just at the time I had 0 210 experience, and I had no experience on the Gulf Coast at all. But sure enough, the detailer called. And of course, he told me that I was going to go to Dauntless in Galveston. I said, sure thing, I'll be there. And he said, you're going to work for a very distinguished cutterman named John Pruitt. And although at the time, I didn't really know John that well, we did share a passion for biking, and we had walked the halls of Coast Guard headquarters at the same time Tony was there. I knew I was walking into a good situation, and I was excited for the opportunity. So I'm not sure when I first met John. I do remember having a few interactions with him at Coast Guard headquarters, much like Tony's. And I also very clearly recall his reputation in the deployable specialized forces community, where we both cut our teeth as lieutenant junior grade officers, that was quite a while ago. And his reputation was one as a solid operator who could always be relied upon to do the right thing right, even though no one else is doing it. He was no different as a commanding officer, an always overwhelmingly competent mariner, and a calm, confident, and collected captain. Quite simply, the ideal leader for professional mariners, one who deeply cared for his crew and his officers. So I'd like to share a few special memories I have of John from our Dauntless days, moments I won't forget. And in full disclosure, some of you won't get all of this, but John will. Jerk Shack chicken in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, one of the finest meals ever. Mooring in Galveston, Texas, which is a tight fit, with a 30-knot beam 2 wind off the dock. That's not easy. That goofy bar in Grand Cayman. Key West, admittedly a little fuzzier than most other memories. The world's dumbest, and I do mean the world's dumbest drug smuggler, south of Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. This guy was a half mile from Cuban waters, which we strictly cannot go into. All he had to do was turn and head north. He went south. The Thanksgiving dinner Chiefs mess crisis of 2012. What a significant emotional event that was. A Christmas party on John's deck in Houston. The Savannah dry dock of 2013, the thought of which still makes me shudder. John is a pioneer who broke another glass ceiling for female professional Coast Guard members by his relentless pursuit of designing, forcing the vetting of, and eventually garnering organizational approval for the groundbreaking implementation of women on Coast Guard 210s. And finally, one of my favorite all-time traditions on Dauntless, smoke them if you got them, where at the end of a patrol, you go out on the fantail and you smoke cigars. Always a cherished event. Despite all of these special memories, perhaps the most profound impact John had on me is something I don't often share. That is probably because I think it means a lot, and also speaks to who John really is. One with a rock-solid character and a fortitude that is unmatched, both of which are well known. And also because it's a little personal for me. You see, I thought, when I reported to Dauntless as John's XO, that I was a caring, compassionate, and empathetic leader. And to a certain degree, I was. I definitely had the foundation. But in the end, I really had no clue. And so John taught me perhaps the greatest leadership lesson I ever learned in 24 years of service. That lesson was to how to put myself, or at least to do the best I could, to truly do the best I could, to put myself in the shoes of another person. He taught me that through his example. He taught me that by asking me hard questions. Hard, unpleasant, but thought-provoking questions that made me go the extra mile and do the hard work that really mattered. Questions that placed me in uncomfortable situations, that challenged my own beliefs and thought processes. To be introspective, to read books authored by thought-provoking leaders of politics, military, and industry, and then to push and exceed my own comfort bounds, and to ask myself, not necessarily others, but to ask myself questions such as, what is a person's background? How does being the child of a single parent from a disadvantaged socioeconomic background change their views and their perspectives on life? How does that impact their actions? What are the unique challenges a young woman faces as a member of a 76-person community, over 70 of whom are men, and alpha males at that? What are the unique challenges for that same young woman, a professional, competent mariner who may lead an alternative lifestyle and is a minority to remain upwardly mobile in a largely white male, tough, take no prisoners community? Than it is for, say, a nearly 40-year-old white man approaching the pinnacle of his career. Why might that perspective and background impact how they interpret your leadership style? More importantly, how do you alter your leadership style to serve those people. Finally, why and when is it important for the whole community, the majority of whom likely do not understand to serve the single individual? How do you communicate that message? Is it even right to do so? Those are just examples. I don't offer these particular questions to make some sort of political or cultural point. I don't offer these questions to make John or I sound like people we are not. I offer these questions because John knew they were relevant to any number of thorny command and human resources issues we may have had over the 2 years that we served together in Dallas. They were impactful, meaningful questions that ensured we did our best as leaders to serve others who counted on us to make the toughest decisions. And moreover, John knew these questions challenged my thinking and my own perspectives. And an important point here, too, is JP already knew the answers to most of those questions almost all of the time. But by asking me and then holding me accountable for doing the hard work to learn the answers to those questions, he gently, and sometimes not so gently, nudged me across self-imposed boundaries I didn't even know existed until I knew they existed because of his guidance. By doing so, he greatly impacted how I led then, how I eventually led my own crew and officers when I was CO on Dallas, just a couple short years after that. Going a step further, by asking me these vital, challenging, behavior-changing, and uncomfortable questions, he made me a better leader, a better person, and has even impacted how I raised my own children. As a parent, I can offer no greater accolade. John, you made me a better dad. That is a holistic, compassionate, servant, and dynamic leader John is. One with foresight, with the courage to hold people accountable for the most sensitive and unpopular tasks. A leader who pushes others into realms they did not yet comprehend, but would soon understand and would be better for it. And a leader with a deep understanding of the impact of his actions, not only in the present, but also in the future. Easy to say, quite the opposite to do. Not many people get that, but JP does. Do the right thing right, even though no one else is doing it. Thank you, John. Thank you for listening. Semper Paratus.
Thank you, Commander. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you Captain John W. Pruitt III.
Wow. Guess I got to do this now, right? So. What a day. First off, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you all so very much for being here on this, my last official ceremony as an active duty member of the U.S. military, and most importantly, the U.S. Coast Guard. It's a beautiful day. To begin with, I would like to thank the members of my family, my mom, Constance Pruitt from Atlanta, my girlfriend, Arena, cousins from my dad's side of the family from Texas, cousins from my mom's side of the family from the San Francisco Bay Area, my mom's childhood neighbor and friend, Virginia from Kansas City, Missouri, my classmates from the greatest academy class ever, the great class of 1994. 94, sir, there we go, good job. Academy friends from other classes and locales and around the U.S., shipmates, my friends from prior units located around the country, shipmates that I've deployed with and spent long days and nights together through thick and thin. Often we spent more time with each other than we did with ourselves. We will always be family. My non-military friends, you guys too. I love you too. I appreciate you for not being in the military. I appreciate you for giving purpose to so many of the things that I have done. I appreciate you for making your impact in this world in your way. I've never met a stranger, so thank you for being my friend and exposing me to your world. In fact, you are all my family too. I'm an only child, so I need lots of brothers and sisters. So, I also want to pay homage and remember those who are not here today. First off, my dad, John Wesley Pruitt Jr. Thank you for getting me here. Thank you for making me go fishing when I wanted to study for a test that you said I would get an A on anyway. I got an A anyway. You're right. Thank you for shaping me into the man that I am today. I miss you every day, and I know that you help guide me every step of the way. To my shipmates and friends lost due to cancer, brain tumors, heart attacks, accidents, life, I guess. Ed, Wolf, Chris Golden, the Golden Bear, and so many others. You all remind me that life is precious and should not be taken for granted, but is to be appreciated and most importantly lived. Live to the lees. Well, okay. Just beautiful. Sailors make their way home towards the lighthouse, the ever signaling beacon, calling them home from the sea, home to their loved ones. So I thought it was fitting to hold my retirement here, to the place that calls you home from the sea. A lighthouse for a sailor to come home to, a lighthouse for me to finally come home from the sea. There have been several quotes that have been significant and have had significant bearing on my life. These quotes are words to live by, and words that I've lived by, and have defined my career in the Coast Guard, and really just my life. I just wanted to share them with you a little bit here. Sometimes when you have your head in the lion's mouth, you have to pat him on the ass until you can pull your head out and get out of the way. That's from my dad. Do more than is required of you. General George Patton. Right is right, even if no one does it. Wrong is wrong, even if everyone does it. A copy of this is on my wall in my office, every office, since 1998 when I got a copy from my boss, Commander Bob Sheaves' office when I was at C2CENT. I think Fritz mentioned a few of those words, but that's it. Just do the right thing. If we can all do that, we're good. Life is great. These quotes are simple, but definitive. Mark of a leader. This was a really hard speech for me to write. How do I sum up 27 years in an hour? Nah, just joking. It'll only be 55 minutes. Nah, not that long. But as many of you know, my mom can talk forever, and so can I. Howard spoke about how I got to the Coast Guard Academy. But I would have never guessed that I would make the greatest friends of my life at that great institution of higher learning. I was picked up at the airport by a family in Connecticut, the Butch family, my sponsor family, whose son was actually my cadre for you Academy people who understand that. Essentially, he was my boss at the Academy my first year. The Academy issues you these local families that are willing to host you at their homes and ultimately make you family. They are great people. They are my family. From day one, moving forward, They welcomed me out of nowhere into their home, my home, 3 Corey Lane, Niantic, Connecticut. It was my haven for many days. My lesson learned from them was family are people you love, not necessarily the people that you are born with. The Coast Guard Academy. Well, what can I say? It's an institution, literally and figuratively, that helped shape me who I am today. This institution put me in the same room, literally, with roommates, with people that were the polar opposite of me. From religion to family to basic beliefs, it was a test from day one. A test to appreciate and understand your roommate, classmates, and to make it work. From X-Ray 2, my swap summer company. Hi, Bob. Wow. There was just so much to learn. There was lots of snow. There was lots of studying. Many late nights. No all-nighters. I never could do that. Trips to Mount Holyoke College. And in fact, every all-women's college in New England. With the Crew of Hotel Company. Hey, Rick. Reliance on others. No man is an island, and no person can do it alone. Another important lesson. We didn't all make it out the door as ensigns, but that too is something that was worth learning. Unfortunately, not everyone will make it, but try to save as many as you can. Underway. Well, I spent many, many days underway. Nearly 13 years of days, roughly 4,745 days underway. From every corner of the world. I've sailed 6 of the 7 seas: Arctic, North and South Atlantic, Indian, North and South Pacific. Haven't been to the Antarctic Ocean, but there's still time. I've spent 110 days underway in a row without pulling in. That was long. That was a long test. A test of not just making it through, but a test of surviving and bringing the people that are there with you safely through the other side. Looking out for your people, ultimately, is what it's all about. During that time, my second combat zone tour, my second tour in Iraq, our goal was to bring everyone home safely. We accomplished our goal. We all made it back. Some days I wondered if that would be the case when the Iranian missile boats came out to play, looking for or when there was the time when I was tasked to go look for the Iraqi army with 3 other people. Quite happy that we didn't actually find them. But we all made it back. I worked long days, 20 hours on average for 7 days a week for 6 months straight. Great stuff. Wouldn't change it, actually. We were a crew, a team, and we surmounted all the odds as a team. It's all about teamwork. That's what I learned. To love and treat others as yourself. And that's what I've always tried to do. To work hard so that others working for you don't have to work harder. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's why they paid me the big bucks. And the extra $100 when I was the CO. It's kind of cool. That's underway life. People have plied the ways for millennia. And the one lesson that we sailors all know and have all learned is that you can't do it by yourself. You can try, but I'm sure it won't be pretty. Ultimately, I can say that the Coast Guard has done for me, so much. It's been a ride far greater than I could have ever imagined. I've gotten to travel far and wide. I've been able to stroll the halls of the White House, working for two great presidents, Barack Obama and George Bush. Most importantly, during that time, I was able to bring my mom in to have her picture taken with President Obama in the Oval Office. And as we were walking down the halls, she was able to chat with Michelle. That's what my mom called her. I didn't call her that. As we were wandering around the White House. I think my mom carried her picture from the Oval Office with her everywhere she went for about a year and was willing to show it to everyone that saw it. That's what made all the hard work worth it. I've been able to live in some incredible places. The San Francisco Bay Area for 3 tours, Washington, D.C., San Diego, Baltimore, Maryland, Portsmouth, Virginia. It's close to D.C. That's all right. Houston, Texas, which was great to reconnect with family there. And here in L.A. Not a bad bunch of places to hang my hat. Driven several cars across country, at least 5 times, I think. I really just can't remember. I kind of stopped counting. So it's been a life full of travel and meeting and greeting lots of great people. I've learned so many great lessons from the Coast Guard. The world is a small place. I've run into classmates in bars in Cartagena, being the only 2 Americans in the city. Late night partying ensued with Rich Sunland, as those who are my classmates will remember. In Bahrain in 2003, at the height of Operation Enduring Freedom, I walked into the Officers Club, and out of nowhere, I hear my name being yelled in a thick Irish accent by Jim. He was a member of the British Royal Fleet Auxiliary, whom I'd sailed with 7 years before. And actually, we'd saved his life from drowning during a hurricane, when his own shipmates had given up on him and were ready to sail away due to an impending tropical storm. So Jim was 350 pounds, and they couldn't get him out of the water when he fell in. And my lead-up team, we wouldn't stop. The ship was pulling up anchor and was ready to go. They weren't going to sacrifice the ship for him. We weren't going to leave him behind. We got him up. And ultimately, Jim bought me drinks that day in Bahrain all day. It's a great day. Always do your best to treat people well. That's really all I have to say about it. That's ultimately it. That is what you should all do. Some of you may ask, how did he do it? I want to copy him and do it too. At least I hope somebody's asking that question. I don't know if you are or not. Well, here's the answer. I did it my way. Army. That's awesome. Sound of freedom. Okay. It would have been a Coast Guard flyby, but they moved the helicopter, so I had to get those guys. So, just know people. It's all right. It's all right. But I didn't always do things the way the Coast Guard wanted me to. I didn't always take the job that the Coast Guard wanted me to, even though everyone told me I should. I didn't always give the textbook answer because that's not the answer to the question that I believed in. While interviewing at the White House, they asked, what did I hope to get out of the job? I said, I wanted to see Area 51. They said, well, you couldn't tell anyone. I said, I know, but heck, I'd know. That wasn't the answer that they wanted, but it worked out. I offered countering opinions to my bosses. They didn't have to listen, they didn't have to agree, but I had to speak my truth. I've always been willing to walk away. I've always said that I was going to do the right thing. If it didn't work out, I figured that there would be always something else out there for me. But I was going to stick to my guns because my personal sense of pride and professionalism and honor was more important to me. And always will be more than a job, no matter how great that job is. Throughout my career, people have said many things about me, many things to me, and maybe they haven't always gotten me. But the most important thing that someone has ever said to me, it was said to me in writing on the gift from the great crew of the Mighty Dauntless. And it said, thank you for giving me a second chance. Signed, Petty Officer Boggs. You don't give up on people until you've tried. And that's why you all get paid. Or heck, you all owe it to others. If you don't get paid, you owe it to yourself to give it all that you have to make a difference in the lives of others. Ultimately, it's always been about the people, other people. It's been about being honest with people, your people, my people. Even though the truth may suck, that's it. Tell them the truth. Ultimately, it's the people, all the people that I've worked with, that have worked for me, that have gotten me here. That quotient has been the hardest part for me. Saying goodbye to the people that I've worked with for all my adult life. I love you all. I definitely didn't do this captain thing on my own. I did it with the help and encouragement of Dave Perry, Bob, Rick, Nutter, Ed Duggs, Maggie, Howard, Juliet, Ben Fleming, Sharif Abdrabo, Terry Vogler, Glenn Roberts, Bob Sheaves, Spike, Buck Hover, J.J. Hathaway, Beverly Kelly, Brian Maggi, Eric Goldberg, Tom Glenn, Al Niffen, Ari Thorpe, Wolf, Fritz, Mike, Paul, DJ. I speak their names because it's important. And most importantly, you all out there. You all have had an impact on me and my life and my career. Your impact is significant to me. Your presence here today is significant to me. You honor me, all of you. You took your time and spent your hard-earned dollars to be here today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. There's still more to come. Now the next chapter begins. But I will never forget the lessons that I've learned from the Coast Guard. And the lessons that I've learned from the sea. I call myself a sailor. A far cry from what I would have ever thought growing up in the landlocked city of Atlanta. Sure, I like being out in the water, probably about as far as I would go. But who thought that when I was 17, 27 years ago, I'd go so far? Not too bad for a kid from Georgia. Now I guess I truly am home from the sea. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. If you could join us in front of the stage. CWO Paul Roskowski will now present a gift on behalf of the Motion Picture and Television Office staff. This is the ancient order of the Golden Oscar. I do hereby declare to all whom it may concern that it is my pleasure to confer upon Captain John W. Pruitt III my eternal gratitude and formal recognition of your valued and professional support of the U.S. Coast Guard Motion Picture and Television Office. Your efforts and devotion to duty ensured that the honor and respect of our beloved service was upheld and immortalized for all to see and marvel upon. The accurate, authentic, and appropriate execution of your charge has provided an eternal example of excellence. Be all ye who go down to the sea, as well as ye lovely land lovers, be amazed that ye have been honored by the presence of this recipient, who has been duly accepted into the solemn mysterious of the ancient order of the Golden Oscar. Be it further known that by the powers invested in me, I do hereby command all to show this celebrity his due honor and respect. We also have another small gift for the captain. It may take a minute. Being as he was the director of the Motion Picture Office, we just felt he deserved a director's chair. Nope. Sorry, Captain. Please stay. On behalf of the men and women of Coast Guard Office of Public Affairs, we would like to make a presentation to Captain Pruitt. The tradition of presenting a shadow box to a retiring sailor is born of early British custom. In the days of sail, when Britain ruled the seas, it was considered bad luck for a sailor, upon final departure from a ship, to allow his shadow to hit the pier before he himself departed the ship. In order to ensure no such misfortune would befall their shipmate, the crew would construct a box of the finest timber and place within it all the things that reflected his accomplishments. Only then could the man, with the shadow of himself in hand, safely depart the ship and go ashore once and for all. On behalf of your shipmates, we present you this shadow box. The shadow box is the military person's most honored and cherished possessions, including the flag of the United States of America, flown over the pier of Coast Guard Island in Alameda, California. Coast Guard Island was the home of 3 of Captain Pruitt's former assignments. His first assignment upon graduation from the Coast Guard Academy, Cutters Monroe, and Boutwell. where Captain Pruitt was both the operations officer and the executive officer, respectively. Additionally, within the shadow box is a Coast Guard ensign. This Coast Guard ensign in the shadow box was flown aloft aboard Coast Guard cutters that Captain Pruitt has commanded, the cutters Edisto, Dauntless, and Steadfast. Please stay. A friend and former shipmate of Captain Pruitt's from his time as the executive officer aboard the Boutwell will now present the National Ensign on behalf of a grateful nation. The Old Glory flag presentation is a traditional ceremony performed at retirements. I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically over great institutions of learning. I stand guard with the greatest military powers in the world. I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. I stand for freedom. I am confident. I am arrogant. I am proud. When I am flown with my fellow banners, my head is a little high, and I bow to no one. I am recognized and worshipped. I am saluted, revered. I am loved in every battle of every war for 200 years. When America fought for her freedom, I was there. When America fought for the freedom of others in World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, and Afghanistan, I was there. I have been soiled, burned, torn, and trampled on the streets of countries that I have helped to set free. It does not hurt, for I am invincible. But my finest hour comes when I am torn into strips to be used as bandages for my wounded comrades on the field of battle. I am proud to have served with you during your many years of service to our country. I will be with you in retirement, just as I was during your active service. Senior Chief, you are dismissed. Captain Pruitt, you can now return to the stage. Will the guests please rise for the change of the watch, the benediction, playing of Semper Paratus, and the departure of the official party. I will now read the watch. Captain Pruitt, for many years you have stood the watch. While some of us lay in our racks at night, you stood the watch. While others of us were attending school, you stood the watch. Yes, before many of us were even born, you stood the watch. Though you saw your family ashore, often needing your guidance and companionship, you stood the watch. For over 27 years, you stood the watch so our fellow countrymen and we could sleep soundly in safety each night. Today, we are here to say, shipmate, the watch stands relieved. You have led, guided, mentored, and trained. We relieve you. Chaplain Wesley will now offer the benediction.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, our hearts are pleased at the conclusion of this ceremony, one that is draped in tradition and constantly reminding us of our sacrifices that we make on a daily basis. But we're mindful today through the service of your servant, Captain Pruitt, that tradition is not merely inherited, but that it must be continued and obtained through great labor, toil, and sacrifice. We say thank you for his commitment and opens up a new one. His girlfriend, Arena, As we close today, we ask in the words of that great benediction that you will bless us, that you will keep us, that you will make your face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us and give us peace. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. We will now play Semper Paratus, and then please continue to stand for the departure of the official party. Now, Chaplain Darrell Wesley departing. Now, Captain Howard Wright departing. Now, Captain John W. Pruitt III, U.S. Coast Guard, retired, departing.
Before I go. Everybody smile.
Anytime, Ellen.
Here we go.
Captain John W. Pruitt III, ashore. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the retirement ceremony. You are all invited to the reception at the fire truck.
Yeah.
We had a lot of interaction. Thank you. Great man. Yes, ma'am.
You're gonna make fun of me about this. I not everything can be perfect all the time.
So Balrog with him?
Both that we shared Lighthouse time. When he first told me I got the message from the captain, it was happening. So you know, at a district, or you're going to end up as your background, program manager for national security cutters. It's going to be something like that. I'm retired. The board's now, he didn't have his letter. But I have a good friend of mine right now who is going up this year for captain, and his letter's been approved. So he said he'll pick it up on 9 months anyway. Did you really?
I was trying to see where we could talk.
Did we get the whole thing? We did.
Awesome. I was just told I'm going to get looked at 2 years earlier than I anticipated. Yeah. You know, I did. I mean, I thought I'd be this is it. August 19, my tour's up. July 15. Tour's up. That'll be my time in LA. I'd retire. That'd be it. But I called from OPM and said, hey, look, be aware. You got to get your stuff together because you're going to get looked at.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I wish that was my only. I wish that was my only. I wish that was my only. It's scary. They all end up with that. Yes, they do. Yeah, there'll never be anything like that again. That will forever. That will stay. That was 2007. Right. Failure. Leadership for us. Right. We don't like anything. There's not much weight on the back. Yeah. Surprised the wind didn't stop. I always felt dirty.
Good. You got him? Okay. You got him.
Don't turn around. Yeah, I'm
That's what started. Hey, you got orders to Sacramento. I hope he's going to San Diego. You got orders to Sacramento. Not the best LA has to offer.
Oh, I will.
Well, that's what we see a lot of. Whatever.
Right, right.
But more importantly, where is it?
Okay.
So whenever John and
What's up, players? The deal
It's the best thing that's ever happened in my life. This is Lighthouse, right down, right back.
Hey, you normally never see me like this, right? Oh, yeah, yeah.
Primarily, no. They're just, it's navigation.
I tried to get a government right there. They didn't have that.
Which is nice. And the downside is this last it's been 9 months. So I'm sure I've seen it. Yeah. Okay, I think I've seen the Oscar.